Good morning, and welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay, the strategic warm-up that makes the rest of your week hit just right. Our guest today is Heather Dolland Tamam. She is a four-time author and entrepreneur and the founder of Doltam Creative Solutions. Heather has dedicated her work to helping professionals navigate career transitions by building visibility, credibility, and a stronger sense of purpose in their next chapter. In a world where AI can generate content in seconds, Heather believes your greatest competitive advantage isn't technology. It's actually your story. She shares with professionals how they can leverage their experience, leverage their expertise, and their personal journey to establish authority, create meaningful connections, and stand out in increasingly crowded markets. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about why your story is your strategy, how to transform your experience into influence, and why the people who learn to communicate their unique value will continue to thrive in an AI-driven world. Now, before we close, Heather's going to share a free resource with our audience to help you start positioning yourself as the authority that you see yourself as. Be sure to stick around for that. Heather, welcome, and thank you for joining me for Monday Morning Business Foreplay inside Potapalooza.
Thank you so very much, Coleen, for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
All right. I am excited to get to know you better. So, Heather, tell me, for those who haven't had the opportunity to meet you before right now, who are you and what brought you to the work that you do today?
So I am originally from Grenada. I came to New York, so I live in New York City. I came to New York back in 1995 to study architecture. And I have shifted careers four times since then. Not because I am an individual that has a case of severe attention deficit. Many times when I hear my own resume being read, I feel that way, but it is because I am genuinely driven by happiness. I feel like, we only have one go around in this life, and we really, from me, I need to make it mean something. That time goes by in an absolute second, and to live unhappy and check all the boxes, just doing all the things that's expected of us and not the thing that we wanted to do, to me, that is extraordinarily unfortunate. And so I have dedicated my life to supporting people who feel stuck because I realized that apparently I have an ability that I had been taken for granted for so many years, and now is my time to share that.
I love that. I love that. And so, wow, what a history. 4 different careers over 40 years. That's amazing. Um,
Well, 20-ish years because I started as an environmental consultant in 2003. So that was 23 years ago. Go figure. That seems shocking even just to say that. Like, where did the time go? But that's the whole point, right?
it does.
That's the whole point.
That is actually the entire point, isn't it? I feel like I'm midlife now. I have 13, almost 14 grandkids. And looking back, I've been married for 37 years. And that's crazy to me that it went that quickly. But I also feel like midlife is a real gift because it's a pause, if you will, in the life cycle where we get to say, okay, whew, I did all the expectations, did all the things that I needed to help other people. And now,
Yes.
how do I get in tune with me
Yes.
and what I want to do? And how do I share that? So tell me, what experiences in your own professional journey, which has been vast, have led you to realize that our stories are often our most valuable business asset?
So, my goodness, you're asking me the questions, and I'm thinking of two answers. I'm going to choose one in the interest of time. When I shifted from being an environmental consultant, I went into the alcohol space. Now, most people can't make sense of that. They're like, how do you, with a degree in architecture and a bachelor's in architecture, master's in environmental technology, end up slinging booze? And the short answer is that a friend of mine who was also from Grenada, she wanted me to help her to do her tastings. And I lived in Long Island in Suffolk County at the time in New York. And I'm like, all right, I know it felt like no matter what time I started work as a consultant, In the evening, when I went to do the tastings, I had a ton of energy. And I realized, although I didn't have the words for it then, that I liked to teach. I liked to introduce them to new wines, to new spirits. And I always sold through my inventory because the same work ethic that I had as a consultant, I took over into the alcohol space. The challenge was that when I wanted to go permanently into that space, to get a job with a distributor, I would constantly get told you're overqualified. What does that even mean? Because they judged me from my resume. Except what they didn't know is that Heather by night, the one who showed up to do the tastings, sold through all of all of my inventory. I had a solid sales sheet. Any of the stores and the accounts that I was in would always ask me to come back because I carried and I had a certain work ethic. And I ended up, when I left being a consultant, writing my first book called Discovering the New York Craft Spirits Boom, where I ended up sharing the story of 30 different distillers. And immediately I realized that writing is a solid tool to create credibility where you don't have formal credentials. And that has been my strategy for careers over. And as we sit here, I'm in the middle of actually recording the audiobook for my fifth book. So, and that is called the Quick Author Formula, because again, I feel like just like in life, right? We have one idea, we're doing something, and then life ends up showing you what it needs. But stepping from here, so after COVID came along, so I had the alcohol business where I worked with distillers, supporting them on their journey. COVID came along, killed all of it. But being completely truthful, I also realized that I was at a place where I had a lot of knowledge that still was not serving. I ended up becoming a content creator. And during that time, I wrote Pivot because life doesn't always go as planned. And being completely transparent, when I was here, I was equally frustrated because again, I'm feeling like I'm missing the mark. There's something that I need to do. And this book felt very much like just throwing spaghetti against the wall. And it was only in me sharing my career shifts, in reading the feedback from readers that were really surprised that I shifted. And I'm like, wait, you don't do that? Everybody doesn't do that? What do you mean you're stuck? And I understood that I knew what to do. And at that point, that was the impetus for me writing Create Your Own Table, a guide to discovering your purpose. And this has truly been the blueprint and really helped me to step fully into my purpose because there was complete clarity on where what I do fits in with the need. And then again, the world just kept showing me what it needed, and I realized the quick author formula was it. So here we go. I'm still off to the races. I'm on this continuous journey.
I love that. And it really resonates with me because as an entrepreneur of 37 years, this is my ninth business I've built. And I have
So
so
you
many
get it.
people that are like, wow, do you do that?
How
Well,
did
you pivot,
exactly.
as you find something. For me, it was a little bit different because I would find a problem and not be able to find a solution when I would just look for one. And so I would go create a solution and build that business up to profitability and then sell it.
Yes, the gap.
Same thing, just wash, rinse, repeat, pivot to the next solution that needs
Yeah.
created and do that on through the years, through the decades, through the decades. So I know that you like to talk about your story being your strategy.
Yes.
I want to know from you, why do so many talented professionals? I mean, there are a lot of people that are really, really talented, but they don't recognize the value of their own experience and expertise. And I know you've sat with some of these people and just sitting there in the moment trying to convince them of the value of that. Why don't they get it?
I think a lot of it is fear-based in the fact that I don't know that it's that they don't get it. A lot of the times people's identities are very wrapped up in the titles that they have. And they are hesitant to walk away from this title because Think about it. When you ask, usually 90% of the time, when you meet someone, what is the very first question that you ask them? It's, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so if there is a job loss, there is always an identity loss. And so there's that. But if you have always been this thing and you're always doing this thing, you are hesitant to leverage the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have, because many times it means that you might be stepping out of what it is that you were doing. And there's a huge hesitation to doing that because they also are connecting the the way that I like to frame it. A lot of us have a monetary goal, but my question then becomes, what is your soul goal? Because for many people, they're like, this thing that I really want to do, it has got to do every single thing. And if it doesn't do every single thing, then I cannot entertain it. And I'm like, but why are you creating all that stress for yourself and that dream that just wants to arise? Because you're putting all of this pressure. And for so many people, when I meet them and they're telling me about all this stuff that they'd like to do, but they don't want to do anything with it, I'm like, because you're putting a lot of pressure. There's no reason why you can't do that thing that is on your soul, that passion project, that side hustle while having a full-time job. But I think it is very much that all or nothing mentality generally that creates a block where they can't see the value of what they have and they could step out from what they've been doing into that other thing that they want to do. Because I also believe that knowledge is transferable. It doesn't always have to be super linear. Um, and yeah, I genuinely believe it's like that's a struggle that a lot of people have.
I love when you say soul goal because I've never titled it that way. But in all of the businesses that I've had, I have never worked for money. I have always had a soul goal.
Soul
I've
goal.
always had a passion and never, literally never cared about the money beyond the fact of looking at a spreadsheet and going, okay, I need to tweak something or do something a little bit different to bring this up to pay for itself or to get to that next level, right?
Right.
But maintaining my focus on the soul goal. And when you do that, it really is exemplified in everything that you do. People can see it on your face, they can see it in your actions,
Yeah.
they can hear it in your voice. And that is the biggest difference in businesses, I think. So, and I think also part of it is that we do things as human beings until we do it well. And then we don't consider it or look at it anymore as holding so much value, if that makes sense. So, for instance, I like to
Yes.
work a lot with herbs and things like that and do a lot of natural healing. And so, when somebody comes into my world and they're hurt or injured and we need to do something, I just do it and rattle off what to do. And they're like, oh my gosh, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I guess 40 years of doing it. But, and to me, it's simple because I've done it so much. And so that seems to devalue it in my own mindset. I need to remember that the value it truly holds. So
Exactly.
let's talk about how someone can take their life experience, their career journey, all the lessons learned, and turn them into an authority that attracts opportunities, clients, and career growth.
That to me is genuinely a book. And it is a reason. So, again, when I wrote Create Your Own Table, this book is very much the blueprint of how I did all of the shifting that I had done. But then I realized, hold on a second. It's one thing for me to say that I did this. Now I need to provide you with the tools so that you understand. Because I actually did share. So, just full disclosure, and it sounds shocking as a person who has written 4 books, well, five. I don't need, the other one is brand new. It is available, but I don't physically have a copy just yet. I really do not like writing. I cannot stand it. It feels like a blasphemous thing to say, but it is true. I write like I take vitamins. I do it because it's good for me. I do it because I know that a book would work harder than any LinkedIn profile, any resume, any business card ever would, period. And for a lot of people who get stuck in the I don't have the qualifications, I don't know enough. Meanwhile, you're doing everything exactly like you just said. For many of us, it's not that we have a knowledge problem, we have a positioning issue. And taking the time to write that book. So when I wrote this book, I knew I wanted a 50,000 word book. You may be able to tell, even though we've only recently met, that I could talk a lot. And so I sat down and I did the math and I'm like, okay, I want to board a 50,000 page book. I do not want to type because I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it, but I could talk. And I leverage speech to text technology. We live in an amazing age of technology. And I sat in my living room and I realized that in 2 hours, I was able to speak 16 to 18,000 words in those 2 hours. When I wrote this first book, I was lucky if I got all of that out in a month. Yet for all, I could do that by just speaking in 2 hours. So quite literally in 1 week, the body of this was done. And that is what I share in the quick author formula. And so it's really just you take the time, you leverage technology, you get, and the other thing also is that when you're speaking, we are not filtering our brains aren't filtering the way that it does when you're writing, because there is that time, that pause between writing, you see the words on the page, but when you're speaking, a lot of that just comes out. No, I will tell you, the editing part was a misery because we do not obviously speak the same way we write, right? And at the end of the day, it is about a book. So there are all the ums and ums, and I was like, oh my gosh, I see. You realize how you actually speak, but the point is that it was done.
Yes.
And progress over perfection, right? It is done. And then I passed it off to the editor and everything got done. And it was really, I sat down, I believe it was February 3rd, and this was up with the audiobook recorded May 15th last year. So very quick, but that has always been for me when the idea of a book taking years was not a concept that I was familiar with. My great aunt, God rest her soul, had a saying, when ignorance is bliss, knowledge is folly. And I had no one around me so I actually, this book, I had a traditional publisher. No one told me, including the publisher, that this is supposed to take a really long time. I had no idea that books are supposed to take years. All she said to me is that this book, so I signed a contract with her in October 2014, and she's like, Heather, this book needs to debut at Book Expo America, May 25th, 2015. I had 7 months. And I said, okay. And I put my head down and I did it. And I think it was because there was no one to tell me that is crazy, because I didn't have any authors. I didn't know anyone who was an author around me. So I was not encumbered by a belief that what I was embarking on was unrealistic. And I think there's so many of us that miss opportunities, walk away from opportunities because someone or you believe for whatever reason, this doesn't make sense. It's not realistic. It's not a million and one things. And then you just stay doing what it is that you were doing, not realizing what could potentially be on the other side.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with all of that. And so tell me, I want you to share your gift with the audience, but before we get to that, I want you to tell us what's one thing that our listeners can take away from this conversation that they can do this week to begin using their story more intentionally in their personal brand, their business, or their professional life.
I think in an age of AI in particular, the one thing AI does not have is our personal experience, and it certainly doesn't have humanity. So if you start to, I think this also begins with awareness, being aware of what that is special and unique to you, and being intentional in your communication, in your communicating that you are, anything that you're doing, you're bringing you to the table. And the thing that special sauce and that special thing, again, I like to speak about that soul goal, that you are bringing that to the table. That would be genuinely my advice in all of the things, it's like, I feel like a lot of people at this point would use my name as an adjective, and it's like, yep, sounds like it was Heatherized. Oh, you've been speaking to Heather, because because I have a certain way, but we all have that way. I think we just need to genuinely take the time to nurture it.
I
So
absolutely agree with that. I think that people have said to me, how did you have so many businesses, and know that people would buy these things? Well, they weren't buying the things, they were buying my story.
exactly,
They
exactly.
were buying the connection with me. And so it's not that I was an amazing salesman, it's that I'm a great storyteller. And that was the key.
Yes.
So you do have a gift for our audience. Can you tell us about it and how it's going to help professionals leverage their knowledge, experience, and story more effectively?
Absolutely. So it is called the Authority Advantage Assessment. I do have a program called the Authority Advantage because, again, especially in this day of an age of AI, there's so many people who are pretending to have qualifications and abilities that they don't. The people who actually have that knowledge, them remaining quiet does everyone a disservice. Because unfortunately, if you're not taking the time to share your knowledge and to get that information out there, the scam artists will. And all that does is create misery for every single one of us and create a longer than intended sales cycle because now there's lack of trust. And so the Authority Advantage Assessment is a free assessment that will allow you, so it'll take 60 seconds to generate. It'll allow you to be able to understand what your visibility looks like based on the answers that you had inputted. It would provide you with a 90-day outline, a guideline on the different things that you need to do to increase your visibility. And it would also provide you with an immediate LinkedIn rewrite. So that is my gift. And as with everything I do, I hope it serves.
I love that, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that your expertise alone isn't enough. People connect with people. Your experiences, your challenge, the lessons you've learned, your personal journey, they're often the very things that make your message more memorable and your expertise valuable. People aren't looking for perfect. They're looking for relatable. They want you to show up as you are. Too many entrepreneurs are waiting till it's perfect, and we need to stop doing that. If you've been wondering how to stand out in a world full of content and AI generated information, Heather's reminded us that your story may be the one asset nobody else can duplicate. Make sure you connect with Heather, grab her Authority Advantage assessment. It will be linked with this video, and continue the conversation. We'll have all of our information available with this episode. Heather, thank you again for joining us for Monday Morning Business Foreplay inside Potapalooza. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Take care. Bye bye.